Lieutenant Loverlady.
This legend analysis is brought to you by me. Yep, I just felt like I needed to get this one out. There's a whole lot of legends in the game, 64 to be exact, and out of all of them, Hattori is one I wouldn't put quite in the top 40 or so. Hattori is a fairly basic legend, not the most basic legend ever, but she's a good one for beginners. Although she's never really been one of my favorites to play, despite being a so-called spear believer. I don't know, when I wanted to pick up spear back in the day, Nai was my go-to. Brynn and Ada were a little bit after, and while Hattori is really straightforward, that's not really what I like about her. Not a lot of spice to her gameplay, not a lot of bang for your buck if you catch my drift. Overall extremely solid in some departments of her gameplay, whether it be her weapons, stats, or as you would most likely know, her signatures. She's got some spicy ones, some not so spicy ones, and personally they weren't enough to make me care about her more in the past, and certainly not in today's Brawlhalla. But it's a kit that a lot of people have recognized to love, considering the wild amount of Hattori players. Before we continue, if you can't get enough of this content, definitely join us in the Discord server. We're having a blast there, and there's all sorts of neat stuff going on. Let's get a move on though, shall we? Spear Insig is arguably her best spear signature, but not the best signature in her kit. Really, it's just nice for catching some dodges, specifically sidelight Insig, or just confirming that kill that you're really trying to get. Spear has some good kill options already, but Insig can certainly kill earlier than any other normal spear options. The hitbox on Spear Insig actually feels really outdated, like it could use a bit of tweaking. Spear Sig is close to the worst in her kit, but not quite there. It's just really short range, but has some really quick startup. Still not really the best for killing either, unless you're on a far edge of the stage. Besides that, I wouldn't see much of a reason in using this one in general. As a wake-up attack maybe? I don't know. Spear Down Sig is a really solid one on Hattori, better than Side Sig and worse than Insig. It leaves you stationary for quite some time as a downside, but the hitting area is wide, like real wide. Who in the world's coming up from a hitbox like this? It pretty much has the same force as Insig and Side Sig, and none of them really differ in that department. Although the Sig has the potential to do the least damage and also the most damage, depending on how you hit it. It also just doesn't work a lot. Trust me, you've got to be specific to make this not work, but it happens enough times to where it should be talked about. And we're done talking about it. Still a solid spear kit nonetheless, although I'd want to argue that Hattori's sword game is better in some aspects. Sword is a super solid weapon, while it's fairly basic and truly shines on a legend like Hattori. Sword Insig is the best signature in her kit by far. You could argue Spear Insig is, although Sword Insig is much quicker, leaves you in a safer spot, and overall does the same thing Insig does, but better. Not literally anyways. Spear Insig obviously sends you upwards, but Sword Insig at least sends your opponent in a more preferable spot. Not so much the best damage out of her sword game, which is questionable. It's not much by any means, but it's still the most. There's a reason why this one is pretty heavily overused by Hattori players. And I don't mean to exaggerate it, but it is heavily overused. It does a lot that keeps your opponent safely away from you if you need to, and if they're nearby for the hit, they're getting punished hard. Then we have the two weak sauce signatures after that. Sword Side Sig is definitely not bad by any means. I find its best usage to be in twos with team combos. Besides that, your average Hattori will probably just be sticking to Sword Insig. It's one I never had much to say about because it's a painfully average signature on Hattori, but I do like to slide charge it off stage sometimes, as I do with a whole slew of signatures in the game. As for Down Sig, this one's pretty bad, although I'd like to point out that I have some very strange success with it, more often than I should. I've never felt great about signatures like these. Ones where you step back and then slash. There's a lot of examples of this with Ember, Jaehyun, Nash. The Spear Down Sig is one I especially think of when it comes to signatures like these. And while the force is nice, I feel like it's way too predictable. By the time it's charging up, your opponent's already waiting to avoid the attack or just punishing you already. Again, yes, it does have some of the best force from her signatures, but it's not by a lot and you're better off just using Insig. I'm exaggerating a lot, but Sword Insig really is just the best option here. Overall, both weapons are extremely solid, it just comes down to what you use best. Spear Demon, Sword Demon, pick your Poison Demon. Onto Hattori skins, there's a lot. Dear God, there's a lot. Let's speed through them. In God tier, we have Kitsune, Sidewinder, and Maturdy Hattori. Kitsune for simplicity's sake, Sidewinder for just being badass, and Maturdy Hattori is my favorite. Amazing color swaps and design. Pretty good tier is Nightblade, Cutting Edge, Neo Street, Akuma no Kogo Hattori, and Zuko. Out of these three, Neo Street is just the one that really sticks out as good, with Nightblade and Cutting Edge being solid picks, and Akuma no Kogo Hattori would be in God tier for a lot of others, but I think it's just alright. Sorry, I love saying it like that. And Zuko I ended up buying after watching Avatar, and I've gotta say, it's the best one out of the three crossovers Hattori has. Average tier has Default, Death Adder, Demon Bride Hattori, and John Cena. Default is the definition of average, not bad by any means. Death Adder is unique, but just okay. Demon Bride is also really overliked, and I think it's just eh. Then John Cena, a strange crossover of Hattori's, but one nonetheless. You wouldn't ever catch me using it though. Mostly bought for the spear skin. Meds here, we have Kill Thrill Hattori. This one's very, very plain. Not a lot going on with it really. Then get out here, we have Onino and Kabuki Hattori, and Darth Maul. Onino looks horrendous, Kabuki sticks out like a sore thumb, and Darth Maul not only is a Star Wars crossover, but probably has the worst color swaps in the game. Sorry Hattori, you have some really good skins where they are, but some really bad ones too. In abundance nonetheless. Tier list wise of SA, B, C, and D, I'd put Hattori at about A+ tier. Hattori is like really balanced, like really balanced. I know we just talked about how amazing Spear and Sig and Sword and Sig are, because they're pretty good, but that comes with a hefty setback in their stat department. 4 strength, 6 dexterity, 4 defense, and 8 speed. Look, a lot of people love high speed, but this is too much. This is what I think actually holds Hattori back from being a super strong legend, or at least super overused. If we switched around a few stat points, she could easily be a top tier 2v2s legend like Wushang or Onyx for example, but that's what makes her pretty balanced. Absolutely powerful under the right hands, but under normal hands, just alright. Of course, in terms of stances, there's one factual right stance. Strength takes from defense, leaving you as a glass cannon, not to mention she doesn't have much trouble killing. Dexterity takes from strength, which, no. Defense is the best one due to taking from speed, which you don't need 8 of, by the way. And speed takes from dex. It removes a true combo, but you also get a whopping 9 speed. Still, I think defense stance is the factual right answer, but I know some speed demons will argue otherwise. Purely based off preference, I just believe defense is the best way to go for optimal gameplay. As for Hattori's play rate, she's a pretty overplayed one, that's for sure. Not in a bad way though, but she's never left the top of the leaderboards really. Even at her lowest point, she was still over 2% in terms of percentage. Not to mention in the past that she used to be one of the most played legends, which props to Hattori all the way, but it's pretty much been summarized why that's the case. Sure, she might have played completely different in the past, but Spear and Sword are simple to pick up, her stat lineup, while not the best it can be, is pretty solid, and you can't go wrong with those signatures. All of it adds up, once again, to an extremely balanced Brawlhalla legend. I wouldn't complain if Hattori never got tweaked again, but that's not thinking realistically, of course. I'd believe old Brawlhalla Hattori was much more menacing to deal with, but a new Brawlhalla? Yeah, she's got some competition, but I wouldn't say it's ever bad to go back to her. You could even argue that she stands up with some of the best few legends. I wouldn't say she outright wins against some of them, but Hattori's menacing under the right hands. Pretty much any sword player is, in fact. Makes me wonder why they buffed it again. But what do you think about the Demon Bride herself? Do you think she's in need of nerfs, in need of buffs, or is this one just right? Definitely let me know in the comments because I love hearing your guys' thoughts, whether you're in Gold or Valhalla. Of course, if you enjoyed this content, absolutely subscribe. It's free and you can always unsubscribe later if you'd like to. I won't cry when you do it, I promise. And until next time, y'all remember to keep on brawling.